First story. I told my sons I regret having them, and that they are both unwanted to stop them from bullying their sister. Now I'm regretting everything so goddamn much. I 39F have 3 kids with my husband 46M. We've been married 15 years and together for 17. We were one and done people from the start. I never had dreams of a big family. He didn't either. We were in agreement. 1 child, preferably a girl, and then we'd be done. We had our first child, our son, when I was 26. He was healthy and adorable, and it felt like a dream. But both of us silently felt that missing piece. I know it sounds bad, but we both really had our hearts set on a daughter. We didn't say it aloud at the time, but we both knew we weren't finished after our first son. I still remember my husband saying, "Let's try again. Maybe this time we'll have our girl." The second pregnancy came a year later. Another boy. I cried after the gender reveal. Not because I didn't love him, he's now 12 and one of the most sensitive and sweet boys I know, but because I realized that we might never have a daughter. I didn't talk to anyone about it, but the disappointment sat with me. I did everything I could to bury it. It didn't work. Still, we agreed to try one more time. If it was a boy, then so be it. 3 and done. But I couldn't shake the need to try for a girl one more time. That third time gave us our daughter. She came out screaming and healthy, and I felt that relief, joy, and peace. I finally felt like my family was complete. The thing is, if my daughter had been born first, I'm 99% sure she would have been an only child. That's not something I ever told my boys. Why would I? It's not something they needed to know. And it's not like I don't love them. I do desperately. I would die for them. But the truth is what it is. We kept going because we didn't have our girl. Fast forward to now. Our sons are 13 and 12, and our daughter is 10. All 3 are close in age and generally get along well. My daughter is a little spoiled, I'll admit it. She's the only girl and the youngest, and it shows. But she's also very sweet and kind. She adores her brothers. They usually dote on her. But yesterday something shifted. The boys were being total jerks. I don't know what triggered it. Maybe they were bored. Maybe they were in a mood. But they kept teasing their sister. I was in the kitchen and could hear them picking on her in the living room. It started light jokes about her hair, her voice, but it quickly escalated. They started saying things like, "You're the leftover," and "You were a mistake." Then my younger son joked, "We should put her up for adoption since she's the last one." She tried to laugh it off at first, but I saw her face change. She came to me with tears in her eyes, asking why they were being so mean. I stepped in immediately. I told them to knock it off. They kept going, even when she was visibly upset. My oldest smirked and said, "She's crying again. You're such a baby." That's when I lost my temper. I told them, "You two better be thankful she's the youngest, because if she had been born first, neither of you would even be here." They looked at me like I'd grown a second head. My older son asked me, "What does that mean?" I told him straight. We only wanted 1 child, and we wanted a girl. We tried 3 times because the first 2 weren't girls. My younger son just stared at me like I'd punched him. The older one looked horrified and said, "Wait, so you didn't even want us?" I said, "That's not true. I love you both more than life." But the truth is, we were only planning on 1 kid, and we kept going because we hadn't had your sister yet. Then my younger son started sobbing. Full-on, gut-wrenching sobs. My older son's face turned red, and he just yelled, "You're a effing B," and stormed off. They both went to their room, slammed the door, and haven't spoken to me since. I just stood there, stunned. I wanted to run after them, explain, take it back, or something. But I didn't even know where to begin. I knew I screwed up, but I also didn't know how else I could have gotten through to them. They weren't listening. They were ganging up on their sister, and wouldn't stop no matter how many times I told them to knock it off. A few minutes later, I went to their room. The door was locked. I knocked and said I wanted to talk. No answer. I waited. Eventually, I just left them alone, figuring maybe they needed time. My daughter was sitting on the couch hugging a pillow. I asked her if she was okay, and she nodded, but she wouldn't say anything either. The house was just quiet, tense. When my husband got home that night, I told him what happened. I expected him to be upset that the boys had been bullying their sister, but he didn't even flinch at that part. As soon as I told him what I'd said to them, he flipped out. He called me a effing nutjob and said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I tried to explain that the boys were being cruel to their sister and wouldn't stop. And I just snapped, but he wasn't hearing any of it. He said, You told our sons they were basically accidents? Are you serious? I tried to reword it, saying that they were wanted, just not originally planned. That we love them and wouldn't trade them for anything. But it didn't matter. He just kept shaking his head and saying, "You ruined them." I begged him to help me talk to them, to sit down with them as a family and fix it. He told me to F off and walked away. And now, he's not speaking to me. At all. It's been 2 days. He talks to the boys in short sentences, brings them food to their room, and barely looks in my direction. When I try to approach him, he walks away. When I tried to ask him again last night if we could talk, he turned up the TV volume. The boys still won't talk to me either. And now they're ignoring their sister completely. She tried to talk to them yesterday, and they just stared past her like she wasn't there. She went back to her room crying again. I feel like I destroyed the family dynamic in one moment of brutal honesty. I know I could have handled it better. I know the way I said it came off cold. But they weren't stopping. They were laughing at her while she was crying. What was I supposed to do? Let them think that kind of behavior was okay? I'm not even sure what to do now. My husband won't speak to me. My sons are furious. My daughter is hurt and confused. And I'm just stuck. I love all my kids. But I can't pretend that we didn't have them only because we hadn't had our daughter yet. That doesn't mean they're not loved. It just means the plan changed as we went along. But maybe they were too young to hear that. Maybe no one should hear that. I don't know. AITA. Comments. Comment 1. OMG, so your boys, who are children, decided to play the oldest sibling tease in the book by saying some variation of "you were adopted" or "we should give you up for adoption." You told them to stop. They, like every child ever, ignored you. And instead of actually parenting, separating them, sitting them down, explaining what they did wrong, and giving out fair consequences, you chose to drop a nuclear bomb on them emotionally. You basically told your sons they're lucky to even exist, and that if your daughter had come first, they never would have been born. You didn't discipline them. You damaged them. You shattered their security and their trust and added a truckload of guilt and confusion to their sister's shoulders too. I guarantee this is going to impact all 3 of your kids for years. Maybe life. Get therapy. All of you. Individually and as a family. Couples therapy too, because your husband is absolutely right to be disgusted. Honestly, if my spouse did this, I'd have a hard time ever trusting them with our kids again. YTA, and not just a little. Comment 2. Yikes. Yeah, YTA. You told your kids not to bully their sister, and then you turned around and emotionally gutted them. You literally told them they were unwanted. Do you have any idea how long that sticks in a kid's head? And don't give me, "but I love them now." That's not what they heard. What they heard was, "You were consolation prizes until I got what I actually wanted." That kind of SHT creates lifelong scars. I'm speaking from experience. I don't blame your husband at all. This wasn't just harsh honesty. This was emotionally abusive. I hope you get serious help. I feel for your daughter too. You just made it way harder for her to have a good relationship with her brothers. Good luck repairing this. Comment 3. Wow. YTA. You shattered 2 of your children to make a point during an argument. You could have disciplined them like a parent instead. You made them question whether they were ever really loved at all. If they didn't already know your daughter was the golden child, they sure as hell know now. You just solidified us versus her in their minds for the rest of their lives. This won't go away. It won't fade. You think you were just being brutally honest, but what they'll remember is that when they were teasing their sister, their own mother said, "You shouldn't even be here." You broke something important, and I honestly don't know if it's fixable. Update. So, it's been about a week since I posted. I wasn't sure I'd update, but a lot happened, and I need to get this out. Also, I've read every comment, and while some of them were painful as hell to read, I deserved a lot of them. Honestly, I've spent the last few days thinking about the damage I caused with just one sentence. I still don't know if it came from a place of frustration, honesty, or cruelty. Maybe it was all 3. And yeah, I get it now. A lot of you were right. I didn't parent in that moment. I lashed out. I let my anger speak louder than my judgment, and I'm seeing the fallout. 3 days after everything blew up, I got a call from the school counselor. Apparently, my younger son talked to someone at school. From what she told me, he didn't even say much. Just that I told them they wouldn't be alive if I had their sister first. She asked if he felt safe at home. He said yes, but then mentioned he'd been crying a lot, having trouble sleeping, and that I scream when people don't listen. He didn't lie. I don't physically hurt my kids. But yeah, I yell. More than I should. A day after that, a CPS worker showed up for a wellness check. I felt like the ground dropped out from under me. They were polite but firm. Asked to speak to each child separately, then me, then my husband. My husband cooperated, but made it clear he still blamed me for starting this whole mess. They left without any emergency actions, but said they'd follow up after speaking to the school again and doing a home report. I don't even know how to describe how I felt. Ashamed? Terrified? Exposed? I don't know. I just kept thinking, how did we get here over one moment of me snapping? Except it wasn't just one moment, was it? It was years of small imbalances. Years of treating my daughter like the missing puzzle piece while assuming my boys knew they were loved. Maybe they did. But now, I don't think they believe it anymore. That night after CPS left, I was in the kitchen when I heard my daughter crying in her room. She thought I didn't hear, but I did. I walked in and asked her what was wrong, and she said, "I think everyone's mad because of me." I asked what she meant, and she said, "They were fighting because of me. They hate me now. If I wasn't here, you wouldn't be in trouble." I sat on her bed and tried to hold her, but she flinched. That hurt in a way I can't explain. She used to run into my arms when she was upset. Now she's pulling away, scared I'll yell or say something awful again. I broke down in front of her. I told her it wasn't her fault, that she didn't do anything wrong, and that I was the one who messed up. I told her I loved her and loved her brothers, and I was sorry for what I said. She cried with me for what felt like hours. The next day, I made appointments. Therapy for all 3 kids. Family therapy. Individual sessions. I even signed myself up for parenting counseling and anger management. I emailed the school counselor and thanked her for checking in. I admitted I hadn't handled things well and that I wanted to do better. But even with that effort, it still feels like I'm standing in the rubble of something I built wrong from the beginning. My older son still won't talk to me. He eats dinner with his headphones in, then goes right back to his room. My younger one is at least making eye contact now, but he won't initiate conversation. My husband, he's keeping his distance. He told me he's not sure if he sees me the same way anymore. The hardest part is not knowing if any of this can be repaired. I wish I could go back and just take a breath. Pull the boys aside. Ground them. Have them write apology letters to their sister. Do anything but what I did. I didn't think words could do this much damage. But they can. They did. And to everyone who said my daughter would carry guilt too. You were absolutely right. She's quieter now. Sleeps in my bed. Jumps when her brothers walk by. The teasing that started this whole mess was dumb and mean. But what I did in response made her feel like the villain in a story she didn't write. So yeah, that's the update. CPS hasn't returned since the initial check. We're cooperating. The therapists are booked for next week. I'm trying to take real steps, not just apologize with words, but show my kids with actions that they are all loved, wanted, and safe. And maybe one day, they'll believe that again. I don't know if anyone's still reading, but if you are, please talk to your kids with care, even when they're being little SHTS. You think you're teaching them a lesson in that one moment. But the lesson they actually learn might be, you were never wanted. And you can't take that back. Second story. I had a miscarriage and lost my long-awaited promotion at work. I turned to my husband for support, but he made a joke about my blemishes and changed the topic. Is this marriage worth fighting for? Throwaway, because he knows my username. We have been through a lot together. We met in college nearly 15 years ago. We're long distance for a little while after graduation, and then moved overseas together and back again. We now own a house, have some pets, are both gainfully employed, and have a wonderful time together. We're great together when times are good. We've been married for 7 years. The problem is that he is a really awful communicator, while I am very open with how I'm feeling. I wear my heart on my sleeve, while he could keep what he's feeling inside indefinitely. This has always been hard to reconcile, but our problems really started about 2 years ago, when we started talking about the subject of having children. I had serious doubts about my capacity for motherhood, but he wanted to be a father. When I would talk to him about my reservations or fears, he would usually just shut down and say, "Let's not have kids, then." He would never be on board for a deep discussion. I decided my fears weren't enough to be a deal breaker, so we went ahead and started trying. We have had 3 miscarriages since then. The stress of first trying to conceive and then losing our pregnancies was immense. I turned to him countless times for support, and countless times I came away feeling like he was going through the motions, but there was nothing real behind them. I know it can be hard for some to grasp the pain of losing a pregnancy. But as my partner, I feel there was a serious lack of genuine sympathy when I was struggling and in pain. He would hug me, hold me, and do everything that would make it look like he was by my side in this. But he never seemed to really listen when I talked about it or converse about it with any depth. This year has been hard for me. It started out promising. I was pregnant again, and I was up for a promotion at work. I lost the pregnancy in the middle of January, and even though all signs pointed to the promotion working out, the position was eliminated after I had gone through 3 rounds of interviews to get it. I found out the position was eliminated officially yesterday. When he got home from work, I asked him for a hug. Instead, he started examining the skin around my mouth. He said, "Do you have mouth herpes or something? I have been breaking out in that area since the last miscarriage. It's a hormonal trouble spot for acne for me, and no matter what I do, nothing stops it right after a miscarriage. My hormones have just been out of whack for a couple of months. So not only was I turned down for comfort after a long couple of months trying to get this promotion and finding out it wasn't going to happen, but he pointed out a flaw on my face that happens to be a lasting side effect of another devastating loss. At first I was angry, demanded an apology, and gave him the cold shoulder after he gave me an insincere one. Then I let go of the anger and just felt so sad. Just incredibly, hopelessly sad. I cried all night long. He finally came to me and said he was sorry in a sincere way, and we hugged for a long time. But I couldn't talk to him. I just couldn't put myself in the position of telling him what I was going through and not really knowing he was there for me. After he left for work this morning, he called me and said he realizes that he needs to work on his communication, and he's going to try harder. He also said he wants to take a trip for our 15-year dating anniversary later this year, something I have been talking about for almost a year now, but that he never seemed interested in until now. I am left feeling like this is all just too little, too late. I suggested marriage counseling about a year ago, when I felt a major disconnect between us after our first 2 losses. He said he would go, but I never followed up and looked for a counselor. Now I feel like maybe it's just too late. I feel like my trust in him is shattered. Is this something we can fix in counseling? Will his communication ever improve? Can I get over these feelings of bitterness? TLDR, husband of 7 years, and I don't communicate well despite my efforts. He broke my trust and is crawling back. Can his communication really actually improve? Or is this just what he's like? Relevant comments. OP. I called him and told him about the promotion not working out earlier in the day before he came home. He also knows that my hormones are causing my blemishes. I don't know why he chose to be so callous while knowing all this information. I'm not usually sensitive about remarks like that, but I think under the circumstances it was unfair. Downvoted commenter. I'm not sure he really chose to be so callous. Maybe you disagree, but a lot of times, if I am very stressed out about work or whatever, and I know my wife is stressed out about her job or family or whatever, then I subconsciously realize that I'm not mentally prepared to truly listen and lend a sympathetic ear, and find myself avoiding or squirming out of serious conversations. I've tried to get better, and to simply tell her when I don't have the emotional energy to be her support at the moment. But sometimes I find myself simply shutting down and changing the subject. I think you are upset because he wasn't there to give you what you needed. But I think you may be overlooking how emotionally exhausting it can be to be a constant life raft for a partner, especially if you have both been going through some rough times career-wise, family-wise, etc. My point isn't to try to make excuses for him. I'm just explaining that if I put myself in his shoes here, I can see making some comment like that as sort of a knee-jerk defense mechanism, if I wasn't in a mental state capable of empathy. I don't think he was being intentionally callous. I think he was just not able to provide any empathy at the moment, and did a poor job of communicating that. I think questioning your marriage over this is pretty rash. OP. After my first loss, he scoffed when I suggested a vacation around the time of the due date to ease the pain, and told me I shouldn't turn it into a morbid anniversary. This was about a week after the loss, when I told him I needed to distance myself from my pregnant friend after she showed me no support. He told me I should be there for her and told me to put myself in her shoes. For some reason, he denied the second loss was even a real pregnancy for months. It took reminding him of the tests we took together, and that I actually passed the tissue to get him to finally stop denying it. Although I don't feel he's ever genuinely accepted it. Do these fit into what you're describing as well? Update. 5 months later. Thank you so much to everyone who commented on my original post earlier this year. We got into counseling not too long after that post, and have been continuing every week ever since. We just had a session yesterday. Our counselor is wonderful. She really understands the situation and has identified the struggle my husband faces when confronted with an uncomfortable topic, like our losses, stress at work, the decision to have children or not, and more. We have spent quite a long time discussing my husband's upbringing. His family isn't really big on communicating, and there are many problems that he and his siblings have had over the years and continue to this day that were never addressed and never resolved. In session, he talked about how he felt his emotional needs were never really met growing up, but that he didn't realize it until now. It made me really sad for him. We had his parents over a few weeks ago, and as usual, the conversation remained really superficial and never delved into anything very substantial. I have tried to share with them about our life and our losses before, but there's never been any sign of interest from them in connecting with us in that way, even though his mother is one of the only people I know in my life who has suffered a loss as well. We spent the next week's session processing their visit, and unfortunately my husband felt a lot of anger and frustration that he wasn't able to talk to them about the important stuff. However, in our relationship things have completely transformed. We argue so much less, and he is completely present and there for me when I need his support. The topic of having children has come back up, and we are still figuring that out, but we can really talk about it and be open and honest with each other without fear, and with respect and open arms for each other. He has repeatedly said that he's really happy we got into therapy, and that he feels great about the state of our relationship. I'm almost happy we've gone through such hard times, so that we were able to hit rock bottom and get to this wonderful place. So, thank you to everyone for your kindness and generosity in following our journey. TLDR. My poor communicator husband and I started therapy, and now our relationship has completely transformed. Thank you to everyone. Final comments. Comment 1. I remember your post, and I was one of the commenters who didn't think your husband could change. I am really glad to hear he has taken the steps to improve your relationship. Keep on at it. He seems so cold that it's a great surprise. He's done such a turnaround, it sounds like he really does love you a lot. You also sound so much happier yourself. OP. In that post, I glossed over his positive attributes to best convey my frustration at the situation, so he comes off as a cold, uncaring jerk. That's not who he is at heart. But how could you know that based on my short anecdote? And selfishly, it was validating to hear others agree with me that enough was enough. I still thank you for reading and giving your input. Comment 2. My husband's family is very similar to your husband's, and yes, my husband and his siblings all have issues. They bottle things up and then explode. They take things far too seriously and are very hard on themselves. Meanwhile, they are unable to acknowledge when others are experiencing sadness or pain, and instead see it as a competition. For example, I told them that my mother was seriously ill with cancer. His mother then launched into a monologue about her aches and pains, and his siblings said nothing at all. One of his siblings can't even say happy birthday or Merry Christmas. He says, "It's your birthday, and it's Christmas and you're here." When they do talk, it is about stuff like wine, music, and characters in a book. They don't ever talk about how they are feeling, acknowledge anything bad that has happened, or talk about what's going on in their lives, nothing beyond a conversation that you could easily have with a stranger. One of them only shows how he is feeling with rants on Facebook, which comes across as him having a pity party, and when people reply in the comments, he angrily rants at them. "I don't ask for your sympathy, I am quite all right." Then he'll have another rant on Facebook about people not minding their own business about his life. When my husband told his mother over the phone that we have been confirmed as infertile, without skipping a beat, she launched into talking about his sister's choir music. He was very angry and hurt, especially because my parents' reaction was to cry for us and tell us how sorry they are. And that was the tipping point where he acknowledged that his parents don't communicate like they should. Prior to that, he always said that I had an abnormally close relationship with my parents, because we talk every few days on the phone. He rarely talks with his family on the phone, not even for birthdays. My husband has been to counseling, and we also talk at length about how to express ourselves and how to acknowledge others. He's getting there. When I compare how he is now to how he was back then, he is 100 times better and much happier. I actually do think that what saved him is that growing up, he was the only one of the siblings that had a large group of friends and was heavily involved in team sports. So he did develop some type of social skills. The rest were daydreaming with their nose in a book, or off in La La Land, playing musical instruments. OP. Wow, that's really fascinating. What you said about the conversations being like what you would talk to a stranger about is definitely my in-laws. They don't even discuss politics with each other. We are really close with my family, and perhaps we are a bit extreme on the other end of the spectrum in terms of prying and sharing. But at least I know I can confide in them, and they will always support us in whatever way we need them to. Our main concern now is that one of his siblings really needs help, and no one is acknowledging it. We believe it will become our problem to deal with one day, but no one will discuss it, so who knows? Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.